Hi guys, welcome back, and this is Caroline. On this channel, I teach watercolor landscapes, painting from forests, mountains, beaches, and even cityscapes. So if you're new here, do subscribe for more tutorial videos and learn to paint with me. For today's painting, we'll be doing a beachscape scenery, and here is a photo that I took during my trip to Sydney last year. I really like the atmosphere here with the warm sun rays glazing over the waters and the fact that it's summertime in this picture. Because who doesn't like summer, right? So we'll be using this for our reference photo today. I've taped my paper onto a piece of cardboard with masking tape because we'll be doing a lot of wet on wet techniques with some heavy washes. Taping the paper down will help to prevent it from warping too much and help to keep it in place. You may do so with any cardboard that you have. The cardboard that I'm using here was taken from the back of my watercolor paper blocks. So here I'm just doing a very brief sketch by following the reference photo. After we're done with the sketch, I'm using masking fluid to preserve the brightest highlights in the painting. Here I'm using Daniel Smith masking fluid because it comes with a pointy end which allows fine detailing. Or you may even use any masking fluid pen that comes with a sharp tip. Moving on to paint the skies. Using wet on wet technique, I always start off with a layer of water and then lay down the blue paints for a softer effect of the skies. You may leave out some white areas to represent the clouds. If you didn't manage to do so, not to worry. Just grab a paper towel and remove off some of the blues to get back your white cloudy areas. If you would like to learn more on how to paint sunset skies and clouds, I've created an online course just on this topic and you may find it in the link below. For the colors of the beach waters, let's mix in turquoise blue and indigo. Without pre-wetting the paper, I'm using the wet on dry technique and diving in straight with watercolors. Paint over the areas on the left and slowly drag the colors over to the right with dry brushing technique. By doing so, we are leaving out white areas to create that white reflection waters from the sun. While the previous layer is still wet, apply a light wash of yellow ochre to create that smooth transition of colors for the sands. Let's move on to paint the trees and buildings at the background. Because these are further away, not many details are required, but pay attention to where the shadows lie. Since the sunlight is coming from the top right, it is important to keep in mind that the shades on the right are lighter and brighter, and on the other hand, the shades over on the left where the shadows are will have a darker shade. This is important to note, otherwise the painting will look pretty much flat. This concept applies as well when we are painting the rocks. The few colors that I generally use painting the rocks are browns, such as yellow ochre, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and sepia. For cooler colors, I like to add in paints like neutral tint and Payne's Grey. There is no straightforward technique on how to paint the rocks, but just play around with the colors until you get the right tone. A tip here is to leave out some white spaces for the highlights to create more contrast on the rocks. You will also need to use wet on dry technique to build up several layers for the rocks. The final rule is that to always keep in mind where the placement of the shadows and highlights should be when painting. Moving on to the sandy beach, let's continue to build darker shades of brown on the shadow areas. Once the painting is dry, I can now go back to the background to add in more details to create windows, shadows around the buildings, and adding in some distant palm trees. And coming back to the foreground, it's time to paint in the shadows of the rocks. I'm paying a lot of attention to the direction of the shadows are and how they are shaped in the reference photo before I start painting. This step is crucial because it's very easy to make mistakes here and the shadow might end up looking pretty off. Next, time to remove those masking fluids. These white areas are where I'll paint in the seagulls later. Let's continue to build in more layers and shadows for the waters to create more contrast and waves-like movement. Here, I'm further defining the shapes of the rocks with a darker sepia. And to finish off the beach, let's splatter in some brown to create that sandy effect. Finally, take out your white gouache and a dry brush. I'm adding in more highlights to define the foam waves and highlights of the waters. Last step, let's complete this painting and add in these cute little seagulls. Adding some birds to a painting can be a good idea because this will bring more life into your painting. Well guys, thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next video.